benefit of the Texas Annual Conference administration, their dirty laundry, skeleton in the closet, whatever you want to call it. I was doing research this morning, and that's what I do when my brain is too active. I research because I have an idea for social media content. And I came across an apology statement read in its entirety during General Conference of 2020, held from April 23rd to May 3rd, 2024. All United Methodist bishops around the world are expected to read the apology at their own upcoming annual conferences in 2024. You may view the statement below and download a PDF version to be used in your ministry context. Well, I don't have a ministry, nor do I ever want a ministry. But it would be good to discuss and use in my content, exposing the inadequacy of the United Methodist denomination and also the inadequacy of the Texas Annual Conference in protecting people from predatory sexual misconduct. So, I'll start with the introduction. And this is from, what is this? This is a resource from the United Methodist Church website, General Conference. And the introduction starts with, sexual misconduct is a current and real problem within the United Methodist Church today. We acknowledge there are people who have been mistreated, abused, and assaulted by clergy and lay leaders in the church. We honor those who have shared their stories, who sat with their stories in silence. We commend the courage of all survivors of sexual misconduct to walk a path they did not choose. Really? Yeah, you're right. I didn't choose this path. But here we are. So we're all going to walk on it. Too often, those who suffer from sexual misconduct are silenced, ignored. I can identify with those. Or not believed by the church. Sexual misconduct includes psychological, emotional, and spiritual abuse. This apology is a beginning point for confession and hope in prevention and response to sexual misconduct in the United Methodist Church. So basically, there is a blanket statement, a blanket apology, without directly acknowledging anybody who's been affected, because basically it's assumed everybody's story and experience must be the same. So we can just cover it with a general apology, a half-assed attempt. We honor those who have shared their stories and those, really? Where? I have not experienced. I spent an hour with the bishop in 2010, and a year after that, there was a lawsuit. There was a settlement out of court for Alicia Provost Whitfield. And her document, the document that Harrison Fisher wrote on her behalf, was leaked in my paperwork, and I experienced retaliation from that. Where's the apology for her? Where's the apology for me? Because I experienced retaliation because of a mistake that was made by Harrison Fisher an attorney that represented her because she was sexually assaulted by a United Methodist clergy that was employed by the Texas Annual Conference. And this, I haven't even gotten to what happened to me and what happened to my childhood, because this is way bigger than what happened in my childhood. And trust me, I'm going to get to that. And here comes the apology. The United Methodist Church apologizes for the times we allowed our desire to protect the church to outweigh our desire to care for victims and survivors of sexual misconduct. We have allowed validity and protection of the institutional church prevent us from holding persons accountable, thus perpetrating harm within our local churches and our ministry settings and damaging the whole United Methodist connection. Interesting. Does this apology, is this directed to anybody who could have had ancestors involved in the United Methodist denomination as well? I'm just wondering. We apologize for the times we have not listened to you, doubted your stories, ignored your wounds, and have not tended to your pain. Really? Yeah, that's true. Because I wrote a letter to Bishop Harvey, and I have yet to have a response from them regarding that letter. Nothing. We believe this has contributed to allowing an unsafe culture to exist. Well, does that include the supervised visitations that are hosted by the Domestic Relations Office at United Methodist Churches under the Texas Annual Conference administration? Because that's an unsafe environment. And yes, I'm going to get into that as well. An apology is worthless without a commitment to the challenging work which must follow. The United Methodist Church pledges to apologize in every annual conference across the connection. So I guess they're assuming that one apology, one general blanket apology, that should do it. Educate church leaders regarding sacred trust in ministerial relationships and power imbalance within those relationships. Really. Develop a trauma-informed response to complaints of sexual misconduct. So basically, this was written just to make it appear as though you're acknowledging it in a generalized statement to clergy and delegates that have been elected to attend General Conference, and to clergy and delegates that are attending Annual Conference. And more than likely, the survivors of this sexual misconduct are not going to be at General Conference. Oh, no. No, because you don't want them voted in at General Conference to attend General Conference. You don't want any victims of sexual misconduct to have a vote in voting for the United Methodist policies because you don't want to be held accountable. You don't have the courage to face survivors of sexual misconduct face to face. You want them to tell you how to fix it, but you don't want to hear it. The apology alone is insufficient for healing. The United Methodist Church accepts our responsibility and publicly states our commitment to carry out the steps named to do no more harm. May God's blessing and never-ending love guide our work and see it through. Wow. I mean, that's deep. They put some real half-assed effort into that. And I'm talking about people with a minimum of a master's degree. Who knows how many of them actually had a doctorate? And I had 2 attorneys representing me and advising me while I was in a homeless shelter. And those 2 attorneys were associated with the Texas Annual Conference Administration of the United Methodist denomination in Houston, Texas, Harrison Fisher, who was advising me because he handled the out-of-court settlement for Alicia Provost Whitfield. Her abuser was Kendall Graham, who was employed by the Texas Annual Conference. I read that letter on my live. And Elsie Martin Simon, who grew up in the Texas Annual Conference as well. She grew up in this conference. I don't know about a Harrison Fisher, but I found out during that time that Harrison Fisher at one point had been employed as a local pastor, previously employed as a local pastor. I don't know how long ago. And I knew that there was a problem with that, but I had no time to process it because I was in the middle of a huge mess. I had an abusive ex-husband. My mother was alive. CPS was called on me by my mother, and she made false accusations because she knew I had evidence against her. And my ex-husband was doing the same because he was being abusive and he was using CPS because I married an abusive husband. And why was that? Because abuse was all I had ever known. And where did I experience the abuse? Within the Texas Annual Conference, because my father was a United Methodist minister and he sexually assaulted me countless times. And I found out in 2017 that my mother had drugged me with codeine so that I would not know that my father was sexually assaulting me, because they needed someone complicit in their horrific decisions. And I was consulting with Harrison Fisher about the Texas Conference and their history of employing predators. And at the same time, I was consulting with Elsie Martin Simon, who grew up within the Texas Conference. She was also a preacher's kid. And I was consulting with her about my family custody case. And long story short, she was angry because I exposed the letter that Harrison Fisher leaked in my documents. It was also suggested to me that I needed to be careful exposing the Texas Annual Conference because I did not know which legal officials or judges were involved with the Texas Annual Conference administration, which I don't see why there should be a problem, why it would warrant retaliation, because I'm exposing child abuse. I'm exposing sexual misconduct within the Texas Conference of the United Methodist Church denomination. And I mean, after all, they wrote a blanketed BS half-ass apology. So I guess it makes it okay now. Meanwhile, my life has been destroyed, and my relationship with my kids have been destroyed, because Harrison Fisher had told me, I didn't understand it at the time, he told me that the Texas Annual Conference would assist my ex-husband by telling the court that I was mentally ill and incapable of caring for our two sons, one of them who had special needs and had already been hospitalized in a psychiatric hospital 7 times with a triple diagnosis of ADHD, pervasive developmental disorder, and bipolar disorder. And I was the one who had handled most of those hospitalizations. And now they're in the care of their father, who is not providing psychiatric treatment. I lost custody. I also had to go before a judge that had a history of deliberately ruling against women because he hated women. It was Judge Charlie Prine. And I was ordered supervised visitation. There was no I have no history of arrests. At the time, there had been no psychiatric hospitalizations. And yes, I'm going to get to that and what led up to that, because I initiated that. I was ordered supervised visitation. And I started out the supervised visitation at South Main Baptist Church. South Main Baptist Church is well aware of who the Texas Annual Conference is. And I know how easy it would have been for either attorney, either Harrison Fisher or Elsie Martin Simon, to have a private conversation with the bishop of the Texas Annual Conference. They knew the direct line. They knew how to get in touch with anybody in the conference administration and have a private conversation. And a few months later, after I had started the supervised visitations, I was sent an email by the Domestic Relations Office. And I was ordered by the Domestic Relations Office, not the family court system, to visit our sons at St. Stephen's United Methodist Church on West 43rd Street in Houston, Texas. During that time, parents are followed to the restroom. The Domestic Relations Office listens to parents have a bowel movement or urinate on the toilet. So would this apology be for Sarah, who was told that she could use the restroom while she leaves the stall door open and her children could come in, if the Domestic Relations Office could literally watch her on the toilet? Where's the apology for her? Where's the apology for her children? Where's the apology for the parents that were followed to the restroom, like myself? And what was the punishment supposed to be? Oh, yes, this does remind me. Yeah, I wanted to address a screenshot I have of a post that the Domestic Relations Office put out. And I'm looking for it now. Okay. I'll look it up. Okay. Here we go. Let's see. I think that this is it. Okay. So, and I want to read a post that the Domestic Relations Office recently put out, because they have also been lying to the public about the supervised visitation. The Domestic Relations Office was honored with a 2025 Achievement Award from the National Association of Counties for its Family Community Supervision Program. The DRO Community Supervision Unit provides alternatives to incarceration for nonviolent offenders of family court orders. So I never violated a court order. And I don't have a criminal record. There is no history of arrest. So what would I need to be incarcerated for? Is it because I exposed the Texas Annual Conference for employing child molesters, one of them being my father, John Chester Dowden? Is it because I exposed the fact that they employed Kendall Graham and Harrison Fisher, leaked a document that they didn't want the public to know about that involved a multi-million-dollar contract? What was the lesson I was supposed to learn in visiting my kids at a United Methodist Church that was under an administration that employed child molesters like my father? And how would I know that the senior pastor of St. Stephen's United Methodist Church isn't a child molester themselves? How would I know that? How would I know that the staff of St. Stephen's United Methodist Church are safe and not sexual predators? What reason would I have to trust anyone associated with a United Methodist Church under the Texas Annual Conference administration? So where's the apology for my sons because they had to visit their mother at a United Methodist Church that employed their grandfather who sexually assaulted me? Where's their apology? Or is that just included in that blanketed general apology that's really supposed to apply to everybody? Because basically it is assumed everybody's experience is the same. Is that it? And what are the odds? Let's see. For 20 offenders, for 20 years, over 6,000 individuals have been placed in community supervision in the Harris County Family District Courts through the Domestic Relations Office. The program is a Justice Initiative success. Really? Where is the success in the Domestic Relations Office hosting supervised visitations at United Methodist churches that are under an administration that has a history of employing child molesters and one of them being a murderer? And what are the odds? What are the odds that out of those 6,000 individuals, that one parent would have grown up in the Texas Annual Conference administration and would understand the sick and gross and corrupt decision to allow the Domestic Relations Office to host visitations, for the conference to allow the Domestic Relations Office to host visitations at United Methodist churches that have a history of employing sexual predators. What are the odds? This is the ideal question for the president of the Council of Bishops, Tracy Malone. And this is the ideal question for the bishop of the Texas Annual Conference, Cynthia Harvey, because Cynthia Harvey had been employed by the Texas Annual Conference before she had been elected bishop. She was an associate, I remember, at Foundry United Methodist Church. So there's no way that she wasn't already familiar with the Texas Annual Conference when she was elected to serve as bishop. And what are the odds, Bishop Harvey, that one parent out of those 6,000 parents would have the intimate and embarrassing knowledge that the Texas Annual Conference has had 3 clergy that have been charged for crime? And one was charged for murder and was sentenced to 55 years in prison. Kirby John Caldwell was charged with fraud. And he still has a relationship with Windsor Village and with the Texas Conference because he's made them a lot of money. Because money has taken priority over ethics and morality. And when money takes priority over ethics and morality, it is about power and control. It is no longer about ethics and morality. What are the odds, Bishop Harvey, that one person out of those 6,000 people would have this embarrassing and intimate knowledge of the Texas Annual Conference? And what exactly is the lesson that one person is supposed to learn? That she should have kept her mouth shut? Is that it? I just should not have spoke about the history of the Texas Annual Conference employing child molesters and one of them being a murderer. Is that it? Is that the lesson in this? Because clearly I didn't get it, and I never will, and I'm not going to, because I will never stop talking about it. And today, I haven't seen my sons in a year. I was kicked out of the supervised visitation because I spoke out about the Domestic Relations Office involvement with the Texas Annual Conference and the history of the Texas Annual Conference employing child molesters, and one of them being my father. So shame on me, right? What is the lesson my kids are supposed to learn? Because they had nothing to do with this. So the punishment for them is that they just don't get to have a relationship with their mother because she just should have stayed silent. Is that it? Is that the lesson? Is that the lesson for them, or is that the lesson for me, or is that the lesson for everybody that has survived sexual misconduct within the Texas Conference and the United Methodist denomination? What are the odds that somebody who has spoken out so strongly about the history of the Texas Annual Conference and how poorly it's been handled would be ordered to visit her two sons at a United Methodist Church that was under the Texas Annual Conference? I was also kicked out of the Domestic Relations Office supervised visitation because I was not okay with being sexually harassed at St. Stephen's United Methodist Church, and I was not okay with being sexually harassed at South Main Baptist Church, and even more than that, I was not okay with being sexually harassed in front of my two sons. I mean, if that was the case, then somebody at St. Stephen's could have taken me into a room and just allowed Shane to have his way with me. Clearly, I wasn't interested. He was a creep, and I would have to back away. And he was contacted by two people at St. Stephen's United Methodist Church because they noticed him flirting with me, and it was uninvited. Why was that? What are the odds? What are the odds that one parent would be flirting, making uninvited advances in front of everybody towards a parent that is a survivor of sexual assault of a United Methodist minister that was employed under the administration that is over the church that we are visiting our children at a supervised visitation? That question would be for you, Bishop Harvey, and it would be a question for you, Bishop Malone, who is the president of the Council of Bishops. What is the lesson in that? It was after I had to visit our sons at St. Stephen's United Methodist Church that I checked myself into a psych hospital. That was the last straw for me. Because having to go and visit my sons at a United Methodist Church with the reminder while I'm there of everything I've lost, and having to visit my sons, I would be happy to see my sons again. I mean, I guess if I have to be sexually assaulted in a room just so my sons don't have to see it, just so that I can visit them, is that what it takes? Really? I think that's a valid question. Where's the apology for that? Are you going to apologize to my sons? I'm sorry. You don't get to see your mother because, look, she should have kept her mouth shut about the fact that we employ child molesters. So we had to take everything away from her. Is that it? By the way, Harrison Fisher had said that the Texas Annual Conference would help my ex-husband get our sons away from me. How's that working out? Because my ex-husband is a child abuser. I have evidence of that, but it wouldn't be a big surprise because the Texas Annual Conference has a history of employing child molesters, one of them being my father, one of them being Kendall Graham. And Michael Tabb, he was caught molesting his son the night he murdered his wife. Or it was the night before. Where's the apology for Marla Tabb? But, she's not here. You can't apologize to her because she's not alive today. What about the spouses that were murdered in the parsonage? What about Peggy Rayleigh? That would be interesting. What about Peggy Rayleigh? Where is her apology? And the children of Peggy Rayleigh and the children of Marla Tabb, where's their apology? Because this is far bigger than just sexual misconduct within the Methodist denomination. And if all you have to offer is a pathetic letter, what was the point? You can't have a foundation where you provide counseling, trauma-informed counseling, with trauma-informed counselors that are trained with severe trauma, counselors that are trained for CPTSD. Where's that? You don't offer that because you don't want to spend the money, because you just want the victims to go away. And that letter was useless. That was just to the clergy. So you're going to apologize to clergy when the majority of the abusers were probably clergy. I mean, that is just ridiculous, honestly. It's sad. What about EMDR therapy? No, you don't offer that. I know that the Texas Annual Conference had a psychologist, Dr. Robert Hudspeth, employed under their administration that would counsel clergy. He counseled my parents. That was a problem. Why was that a problem? Because we had personal connections with Dr. Robert Hudspeth. And it was a conflict of interest. I should have been referred to a female therapist. I know Dr. Robert Hudspeth knew something was wrong, but it's very convenient to have a psychologist employed under your administration counseling and providing treatment to his own colleagues. This is so much bigger. And if you think that a pathetic, blanketed apology is enough, you have no idea how big this is. You really don't.